City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded June 12, 2023.
I'll call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Finance Committee. It's called to order at 7:02. Thank you. Carrie, could you please take the roll?
Christensen.
Here.
Morrow.
Here.
Shore.
Here.
Zerazua.
Here.
Huda.
Here. All right. Open up. First on our agenda will be a presentation from our City Assessor on the current property reevaluation. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Steve Shepro. I'm the City Assessor for Stevens Point. And what we have, I put together was just a revaluation summary report. What's happened over the last 3 years or so. We review sales, we review building permits, and so that's how we're collecting our data as we go along throughout the years. We're on a 5-year schedule. This is actually going to be 6 years since we did the last reval, because it was 2017, and only because I think with the values the way they were going, we wanted to try to get a stable year in there somewhere, and I think we're finally starting to see that a little bit. So Stevens Point's doing very well yet. Our sales are still seem to be above asking on a majority of them, and so around us that's not so much. So some of the things you can go through on our report here is, oh, mine's out of order, I'm sorry. Well, it's a good start, excuse me. So we talked about, or mentioned about the data collection, data entry. In 2017, we switched over to new software at that point. So everything has been in Market Drive, our software package. We constantly update that. That's where our record card is. We don't have a physical paper card anymore. Everything's electronic. The valuation models are all been updated in the system, which is telling us is basically looking at new cost guides based on the states, and Marshall and Swift for our commercial. And then we do all of our income and expense numbers for commercial. Final review is at the stage we're in right now. We're just looking at properties one by one, basically reviewing and making sure there's no errors on them. We'll do that throughout this week and until probably Monday or Tuesday next week. Timeline, well, I guess we'll finish up at this page. Notices will be mailed out prior to June 26th. We probably are going to be going out probably on the 23rd, on that Friday before. The information will be on the city website, our site, and the city's. We also have a site from our software. It's assessordata.org. You'll be able to see any property information on homes and valuations. So if you do comparables, we're always there available too in our office to help you if you're looking for that information. We can do that. The open book is, hearings are basically informal, and you sit down with us and discuss the valuations. And that's July 10th, 11th, and 12th of this year from 8 until 5 p.m. And that will be in the conference room, the city conference room on the first floor. And then on board of review, that's more formal hearings. That's July 26th, and that starts at 9 o'clock, and that's where you have to file a formal objection form and to discuss. We try to encourage people. My policy has always been, if you're welcome to come into open book, but usually if you give me a phone call, I'm happy to meet people at their homes. I like doing that. I feel like I have a better conversation with people when I do it on their turf. So I prefer to do that, and I think we have better discussions that way, but either way works for us. So as you can see, our major class comparison on the last page, we were pretty close on most. It was 75% our level of assessment and 78% for commercial. That's pretty close together. I would expect the commercial wouldn't be as far, but if you look at already based on our sales, we would be at 67% now in 2023 if we don't do the reval. And on the commercials, it actually goes the other way. Our sales are showing it's going a little bit the other way in the 80s. So that's what's happening, but that's what we see pretty much statewide, is that residential is carrying the load pretty much all the time, so. So the level assessments I got written in there below that. Some of the things I've tried to put in here that are very important, that worked very well last time in 2017 was, especially for council members and public officials, please refer people to me, to our office. One of the hardest things to do is having somebody telling me, you got to take care of this one. We want to be upfront and be, good to everybody and be fair to everybody. So please refer any questions that you may get from constituents or whatever to our office, and then I will follow up with that person, and then we'll follow up with the alderperson or whoever it is to let them know, that this is what was done, and hopefully we can resolve it. If we can't, I will let you know that. Sometimes, the thing we're seeing right now out there from other communities is it's not so much about the value anymore, it's all about the taxes. And we just try to explain is all we do is valuation. We want to make sure the valuation is what you can get for the property as a market valuation. What it does for taxes, I don't calculate that at that point, because none of us know that until the budgets are done anyway. So, but other words, I think so far it's been going along pretty good. Like I said, we still got some work to do on certain properties. We're working on buildings on leased land. Just kind of miscellaneous items now just to clean the things up, and hopefully we can get it in the mail by next week. So,
Okay.
Any
questions from the committee?
Just wondering if for the video you want to say your phone number so people can reach you.
For our office, 715-346-1553, extension 2.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda will be approval of the ordering of 2 garbage trucks with funding to come from the 2024 capital budget. I think
Yes.
Are you gonna present on this,
Well, I can at least start it off. So this was a request from Chris Johnson at the Streets Department. Basically, it used to be that we could get things the same year where we could approve a capital budget and we could order those things, once that budget was in effect, and it would come the same year. But unfortunately, with some of these items, we're running into this issue where now with supply chain issues, there's a little bit of a longer lead time, which puts us in a position where we have to basically make an order ahead of time. And so basically we'd be making a commitment for the 2024 capital budget to have this on here. Superintendent Johnson, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, that's pretty close to what we have in the memo. I can take any questions on it.
we do have a memo in the package. You should have had a chance to read through that. Do any of the committee members have any questions for?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Morrow, second by Shuda. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Our superintendent? How old are the trucks that they're going to be replacing?
They'll be 7 years.
Okay. And that's pretty standard practice?
Yeah, I mean, considering when we did the math, I mean, they pick, we have about a little over 10,000 garbage cans that we pick a week. I think on those two trucks, we estimated they did about 1.5 million, picks within their lifetime so far. So that's pretty standard.
Okay.
They're out just about every day.
Any other questions from the committee? Any from the audience? Okay, we have a motion to approve. All those that would be in favor could signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed would be no. And it passes. All right, thank you. Next item will be, I think Superintendent Johnson will be able to speak to this as well. Approval of a weed harvester rental agreement with Aquarius.
Sure. And I put a history of this issue in the memo because it's been a kind of an ongoing and developing issue since almost not quite a year yet, but essentially one of our weed harvesters, we have two, our older one was damaged. There was a settlement with the insurance company. Eventually it was severely damaged. We did apply for a grant, so we were in council, or came to council in January of this year to get the resolution for applying for the grant. We had to pull our grant from the February cycle, and it got submitted in June. Essentially, there were a lot of municipalities or lake districts that had applied for the same grant that we would not have gotten the 50-50 funding from the grant if we got awarded. So in talking with the DNR and the grant specialists that we've been working with, we had much better odds of holding it and resubmitting, and we resubmitted June 1st. I believe we have really good odds at getting that 50-50 funding for this grant. But in the meantime, we are without one of our weed harvesters that the city owns and the Lake District uses for weed collection. So this would be until we're able to secure a new weed harvester, or purchase a new weed harvester. This would essentially be able to have something that we can use for weed harvesting. There's something I want to point out in working with Aquarius. They've been really great to work with. There is, they estimated it'd be about 40% of what we spend on the total cost of leasing, or the lease agreement, we'd be able to, that would be taken off the purchase cost of a new weed harvester, which is also on the agenda tonight. That number could grow. It sort of depends on how much we spend, but in the lease agreement, they put a minimum of 40%.
Okay. Committee, what are your wishes?
Could you remind us the nature of our agreement relationship with the Lake District?
The current agreement that we have, or in the past, the city has supplied the weed harvesters, and the Lake District has utilized them with their forces and their labor for the collection of weeds, or seaweed.
Any other questions? Okay, then a motion to approve would be in order. Well, we'll wait till we have a motion, then we'll have the discussion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Morrow.
Second.
Second by Shuda. We had a question from the audience. To the lectern, please.
Dave Plassance, Sixth Alderman. I see a cost of $105 an hour for that. How many hours do we figure? Is that run time or time that it sits on our property? Or what do you feel is going to be a cost of this for a month or the summer?
Sure. And in the memo, so that's off of the hour meter. Is the lease agreement would be 105 hours off of the hour meter, which means that's when the harvester is actually running. In the memo, we put an estimate of, I believe, 40 hours a week for 12 weeks, and I estimated that cost to be about $50,400 just based on that math. I have talked with Krista. I think you said you're assuming about 35 hours a week, so somewhere between 35 and 40 hours a week that the weed harvester would be running. Conservatively, I put 12 weeks at 40 hours, and then 40% of that cost could be applied to the purchase of a new harvester. Hopefully more, but that's what they're willing to put in paper right now. Yep.
Anyone else from the audience?
Alder Fischler, District 10, and this is my district where the Lake District falls into. So I just want to point out that I know that, $50,000 sounds like a lot of money, and I know that everyone's budgets are tight. I just want to let people know on the committee that 169 houses that are part of the McDill Pond Lake District contribute over $1 million to the city tax revenue. So I think it's important to know that. These same people are also contributing $1 million for the dredging project. So they are shouldering a lot of responsibility to pay for McDill Pond. And I think, $50,000 is really a small amount to secure the, you can look at it like as an investment, really, for the city, because these people shoulder a lot of responsibility to pay for the McDill Pond and the maintenance and take care of everything. And then there are a lot of people that use McDill Pond and utilize it that don't pay any money. So I don't think it's too much to ask for this small amount for this particular situation. So I support the funding for this. And then also, if the 50-50 funding comes through, which, the city, Supervisor Johnson thinks that it's going to be coming through, that, the price tag will be less. But I'll not talk too much about that because of the next agenda item. But I just wanted to make the committee aware of what falls on the shoulders of these folks in this district, and I felt it was important for me to speak up for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alder Fischler. We do have another. Absolutely.
Hi, Melissa Johnson, 1703 Division Street. I did not know until I attended a Lake District meeting, thank you for the invitation, and learned a lot from that the labor that goes into keeping that waterway clear so that we can enjoy it for kayaking, canoeing, fishing, recreating, comes off the back of volunteers from the Lake District. That is a public thoroughfare. Now imagine if we said to, the crew is down Lincoln Avenue, I live on the corner of Lincoln and Division, and the crew is down Division, Streets Department crew, and they were filling potholes, and they had all of the stuff, and they were making a lot of noise, but lo and behold, the big pothole outside my house was magically filled. I am very happy, but imagine if they dropped off the stuff and said, okay, this is a public thoroughfare, but you now do the labor. You fill the pothole, we'll supply the equipment. So whatever this costs, the work, the volunteer labor to make sure that that public thoroughfare, yes, we're supplying, we, the city, are supplying the equipment, are arranging for the equipment. But we should be grateful to the Lake District volunteers and the labor they put into it so we can all enjoy that public thoroughfare called McDill Pond, because most of us probably wouldn't spend 40 hours a week trying to collect weeds out of a darn pond or filling our own potholes. So it's money well spent. Thank you to the Lake District for their hard work.
Okay. Absolutely.
Krista Olson, 3317 Della Street, Stevens Point, and also McDill Inland Lake District President. Thank you again to the city for partnering with us, and I just want to make sure that the city is aware of all what comes out of McDill Lake District to keep the McDill waterway running. Along with supplying the labor, some is volunteer. We hire UWSP students at a fair labor cost, and some of them do work internships also too, so that we can supply the labor. And we staff 2 people 5 days a week, sometimes up to 7 days a week, going on shifts between 8 to up to 12 hours, and that's what it takes to maintain just the waterway with removing the invasive species that we have right now that we're fighting, along with just the native plant species that are there. The other thing that McDill Lake District also puts in is yearly we are treating and fighting Eurasian water milfoil, and that goes to the tune of $28,000 a year. that comes out of the backs of what we have as 169 homeowners that we're taxing with the Lake District fees. Along with that, we also have the maintenance of our own equipment that we do not have the city taking care of right now, but it's a big cost for us to operate a garbage truck, which this year I'm going to be writing a check for $5,000 in repairs on, and that's getting really difficult for us to maintain. We are also working on trying to improve our equipment and what we have available to us for students to be able to use for harvesting and other requests that come in. Then we also have our insurances, workers' compensation, and all the other things that you roll into running a Lake District municipality, and you're sitting at well over a $65,000 budget that we're taxing on 169 homes. This equipment is over 30 years old. Its life expectancy is only 10 years. You can see why we're having an issue. And we sit here and struggle weekly to keep it running. And we work with the city staff. We're very grateful for them for what they do to try to keep it running. But it is old equipment, and it's faulting on us. And we need to do better. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? If not, I think we're ready to take a vote. All those in favor of this lease agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed would be no. That passes unanimously. Next down on the agenda, again, a very closely related issue, the purchase, approval of the purchase of a replacement weed harvester from Aquarius. Chris?
Yeah, similar history that we went over already on this. And again, coupled with that grant that the city applied for, and then I guess technically reapplied for in June, this would be for the actual purchase agreement with how far out, sort of like garbage trucks and fire trucks, everything that we've seen come before the committee. There's a long line, so to speak, before we would be able to see any of this equipment. While we wait for the grant to get approved, we can at least get our name in line from Aquarius, where they could, not necessarily start production because it wouldn't be that quick, but we'd be, I guess, in the queue. And part of the agreement that we have with Aquarius, and to not jeopardize any of the grant funding, we did clear this with the DNR. We have had the conversation that we can actually sign a contract, a purchase agreement for the weed harvester, and in the event that we would not receive the grant or the funding, that contract or that agreement wouldn't stand up, and it would be something that we'd have to come back and have further discussions about, or reapprove an agreement, depending on whatever.
You're basically asking for an approval contingent on receiving the
Yeah, yep.
50%.
And that's how the grant, or how the contract would be written, or is written.
Okay.
So moved.
There's a move by Shore.
Second.
Second by Morrow. Discussion, first of all, committee. Any discussion? I think we're pretty familiar with it. From a lot of it relates to our earlier conversation. Anyone from the audience want to add anything? Alder Fischler.
Alder Fischler, District 10. Again, I just want to reiterate that what Chris had mentioned, that if the funding didn't work out for the 50/50 grant, I know that it would be looking at, $239,000 for a new harvester. And I just want to say, even if the funding didn't work out, I still look at this would be a $239,000 investment to maintain $100 million year after year. I know that there's some people that maybe think that McDill Pond could be like should be a marsh area, but then you're looking at homes losing property values, and then that tax revenue would slowly decrease over time. So I just wanted to note that and make you aware that that's why this is important, even if the funding didn't work out. Thank you.
But the motion as made is contingent on reception, and we'll revisit it if we do not receive that. So That is the motion. Anyone else want to speak to that?
I would like McDill Pond to be McDill Pond and not McDill Marsh or McDill Swamp.
Duly noted. All in favor of approval of purchase agreement contingent on receiving the grant funding could signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the noes would be, anyone against would signify by saying no. Passes unanimously. Then, are we ready for closed session? Is that our?
No, we've
No,
got one more
claims.
item.
Ah, yes. We do have
A couple more
community, yep. Community memorandum of understanding with AARP for a community challenge grant. Dr. Kanowski, are you going to be speaking of that?
Yes, Director Kuhn is absent tonight, so I will, I'll speak in his, just making a joke there. So as Finance Committee might recall, the city applied for and pleased to announce that we were received funds from the AARP Community Challenge Grant. That grant is to assist with the installation of ADA benches near our bus stops, especially those that are heavily used by those with physical disabilities. And so as part of that, we do need to enter into an MOU with AARP. And so this pretty much just outlines that, yes, we are going to be installing the benches within a certain amount of time, and there's some additional requirements for us to have, including a couple public workshops, and then the establishment of an actual aging committee that currently Mayor is working on putting together as part of being an AARP age-friendly community. So more than happy to answer any other questions, but I think there were like some 3,500 applications, and we were one of about 300 that were awarded. So very pleased with receiving that grant.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Well, okay, motion to approve by Alder Morrow. There's a second. A second by Alder Zarazua. Any comments?
This is way better than chairing a committee. I can talk. So, Melissa Johnson, 1703 Division Street. I think it's wonderful that we are considering aging and the impact of aging and how we better accommodate old people like me or elders, but I would be remiss in my obligations as a former Commission on Aging ADRC board member, which I did for 6 years, to not mention that we have an amazing resource in this community, the Aging and Disability Resource Center, commonly referred to as the Lincoln Center. The staff there works on these kind of things every single day. They have specialists that are trained, and we have funding under the Older Americans Act to do these sort of things. The Commission on Aging deals with just the things that an aging committee might be working on. So again, we already have experts in our community, and I would encourage everybody to better understand the resources of the ADRC / the Lincoln Center and how we can better accommodate and make more accessible our community for those as they age into retirement and other lifestyles.
I have had a chance to attend a seminar that was put on by AARP in dealing with the needs of the 8 to 80 population, all those young, and we tend to design things and take into consideration those that are able-bodied and between the ages of 12 and 55, and we have a good portion of the population that doesn't necessarily fall into there. So I'm glad that we're taking some concrete steps, and so I'm encouraged by this. We have a motion on the floor. Any other comments?
I just wanted to say this reminded me of something Alder Nebone always says about people need to know like how far something is in their downtown area. Like I thought of this too as really helping people who need to know how long they have to wait for a bus. You have no idea really if the bus might be running late, and knowing that you can sit while you wait for the bus is a really important thing. So I'm glad it's something that we're looking at as well.
there actually is now a system on each of the buses. If you have a smartphone, you can actually see exactly how long it'll be till the bus does come to your stop. So
Some of
that's
our
pretty
elderly
exciting,
aren't
too.
there
No,
yet.
I understand that. But it is something that's now in place and an additional asset to the community as well.
Jitterbug doesn't have a can.
Any other comments? All right, hearing none, we'll take our vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed would be no. And that brings us to our claims that we've already paid, which this always boggles me why you approve them after they're already done anyway, but that is the way of the world. Corey, any of them that you'd like to highlight?
You know, as usual, we've got a couple of tax settlement checks, so you'll see some bigger items there, and that's typical that we collect the taxes for all of the taxing jurisdictions, and then we forward that money on to the county, the school district, and the tech college. So you'll see some there. Another big outlay for road maintenance, and those will continue as it's road construction season, and those checks get quite large. So.
Anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask of the treasurer?
Make a motion to approve, please.
Motion to approve by Morrow.
Second.
Second by Shore. Any other comments? Questions? Anyone from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed would be no. Those claims are approved. That brings us to our closed session. A motion to go into closed session would be in order.
So moved.
Moved by Morrow.
Second.
Second by Shuda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
It's roll call.
Roll call, you're right.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Christensen,
Yes.
Morrow,
Yep.
Shore.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.